Hey, what's up? It's Max Chroma with another tutorial video. In this video, I'm going to be showing a little bit of how I might use something like the Max Chroma Color Blender and Halftone Tessellator. Now, this is a plugin panel that I created for Adobe Photoshop, and it works in version CS6, which is 13, and version 14. You can get to those versions if you have Adobe Creative Cloud, and you would get to that by either one of the under Apps, Photoshop installations. You can see that I have CS6 v13 and CC v14 installed, as well as version 20.0.6, the latest version. If I go to this and I say manage other versions, you can see you can actually install all of the versions up to version 20, and they each have numbers, so 18, 19, 20, etc. CC 2017 it goes back to right there. You can see that I've got version 13 and version 14 installed. I have another video on my channel that shows exactly how to install that panel, but I'm going to assume that you've already got it downloaded and installed. I may go over that again in another video showing how to install it on a Mac computer. So with this version installed, I'm going to actually be running Photoshop version. Go to Help, About Photoshop. You can see I've got 14.2, so I've actually got that updated as well. Once it's installed correctly, I can go to Window Extensions and see Max Chroma Color Blender right there, and I've got that panel open already. So it's a separate panel. It has multiple pages, and I'm just going to be showing you, I will start making videos that go into each of these buttons, each of the pages, how this thing works. But in this video, I just wanted to show some of the ways I use it to trick certain things and little techniques I have for extracting certain images into halftones that you may use for something like screen printing. Okay, so this test file, which I just showed in a previous video using the HCWB custom color range, is something where you could go in and start trying to extract with the color range tool different blends, try to make the separations out of each of these custom colors. It could be separated in standard colors and then printed that way. I guess I'm going to show that first, and why something like this you might go ahead and want to use custom colors to print it. You know, it's you kind of have to see the difference in order to understand. And I'll just crop the image down. I'm going to make sure I have this sized somewhat appropriate. Let's say it was about 12 inches wide and it's only about 5 inches tall, 300 dpi, that's fine. Okay, so this is my original image to work from. And the transparent background, let's say it's going to be printed on something like a t-shirt. It may have another color that it's going on. Okay. And that would be the substrate color or the shirt color. So I'm going to have this already looking at it as though it's a transparent background. So there are a lot of automated ways to go and separate this, and I like to, the way I approach color separations for screen printing is kind of different than a lot of other techniques out there. I like to get into the halftones as accurately as possible and have them all work together a certain way, and not necessarily going and separating it into channels individually and then leaving it up to someone else to make the halftones. I like to have control over every part of the process. But I'll go ahead and show you. So these are the different pages at the top. I go right to Layer Rips, and if I'm going to include a gray in the color separations, okay, this has some grays in it that I might want to keep around, some of the stuff in the rims here. I can go ahead and go with the 6 hues layer rips, or maybe the 12 hues layer rips. That's based on splitting it into these 6 hues, like red, yellow, green, cyan, magenta, and blue, or into 12 hues. If I eyedrop this color, you can see that it's pretty much a lot of orange, okay? There's down to 15 degrees. I might have some red dots in it. This would be mostly orange dots mixed with white and a little bit of black. Down here would be kind of some red and orange dots with black. I can already know, based on what I know with how this program works, what it's going to produce. But I'll just show you that either way, if I go with the 6 hues or the 12 hues, it's going to be made of a bunch of different dots of pure color, black and white. I'm going to click down in the halftone type for 12 hues, plus 1 gray. So this one actually produces separation that includes a gray. And then I'm going to choose the rip at LPI here. I'm going to say 60 lines per inch, and I'll just click the button, 12 hues. This is going to process all of the separate layers of the image. And it's not necessarily like some of my other actions where it will automatically detect and remove some of the colors that aren't there. There's going to be some layers that have really nothing in them, or just a few dots here and there. And part of that process, I would go and merge it down, but I'll just show you. And this is where I would use custom colors rather than this technique. But what I'm going to get to with this particular example is how sometimes I can just use what I've already created and automate the process of doing a more custom color example by tricking the original image into certain colors that work within this action. And this runs a script file, which you can access in the other versions of Photoshop and run the scripts there as well. But this panel just kind of makes it quicker to go through and do some of those things. Okay. It's actually going and producing the gray, and it has to make the black and white also work with that gray differently. And then when this is done, I may expand the panel options to look at the layers a little bigger. And so rather than just work with all of these grayscale gradients, I go ahead and produce this thing directly into halftones. And this is why I call this the Max Chroma Color Blender and Halftone Tessellator. Essentially takes a flat image, converts it into halftones automatically, and you could use those for printing. I've used this thing a lot. I built it for the screen printing process and have used it a lot over the years for that. I'm going to look at these layers a little bit larger. So you can see that each of these are like a color layer with a mask that has the halftones on it. It's been automatically put onto a gray background. Let's just go ahead and see there's a full layer rip composite on top. You can ignore this color bar created around it. That's generated just so the each of the actions will work correctly. But I'm going to maybe go to canvas size, and I'll just do -1.5. Bring that in like so. And so this composite layer is built because really, when you're zoomed out of Photoshop and you have a lot of these halftones in the artwork, it's not going to look accurate. You can see it sort of change right there when I zoom out to a certain point. The halftone composite layer is the same thing as this perfect proof button that really just creates a new layer and merges it visible together. So that perfect proof button is really just giving you a merged composite layer. Okay, but not looking at that, and I'll just delete that for now. We've got a highlight white, and I'll just go through and show you, turn all these layers off. Here's the substrate background and the original artwork underneath. Next is an underbase of white ink that's created automatically to work with all the other colors over it. The black does not actually go into the underbase. Is essentially the black is knocked out from that underbase. And these are interlocked together, okay? But also there is a medium gray, and you won't see that over the background if it's gray, so I'll just change that background to like a blue. So there's a medium gray ink, and then this is also, let me just drag it down here. That is being underbased, I believe. So sometimes you might not want to underbase the gray, and I could also, let's say I had a gray shirt, and I was not going to print the gray. So if I had a medium gray shirt, I would just go ahead and Control select those dots of gray, and then go to this underbase, and with the background, I would switch the background so it's black. I can do Control backspace or fill with black on that mask channel, and that basically knocks those gray dots out from the underbase. So then I could have the black, and you see the shirt color comes through there. But really, we're not going to do that because of the fact that, let's say it's not really going on a gray shirt color background, right? Okay, but basically the black, gray, and the highlight white work over the underbase. So you can see the highlight white, the black, and the gray. Okay, and there'd be other colors mixed in there as well, and the underbase goes under those colors. But you can see the shirt color coming through because I don't have the base in there. So white ink, gray, black, and a highlight white. But then we'll look at some of these other colors. Okay, like the blue, and you see, yeah, there was maybe some blue in the transparency of the original image there. Let me go ahead and, yeah, I can just have that set to white. If I look at the original image and go to the eyedropper, you can see that this had just a 1% of saturation. So it's putting certain things in there that I may not even use. And I'm going to look at some of the others. So the azure blue. Yeah, so I just won't even use those, right? Let's look at the red. So this is what I was saying before. So there's red dots and then orange dots. So you can see those orange screen. And then there should be a little bit of yellow. Might not really be much yellow in there. Yeah, the yellow is mostly from the original, just in these areas of the turn signal lights. So, and that's because in the original, this did not really go past 30 degrees anywhere, maybe 31 a little bit. If this was done with the 6 hues method, it'd be a lot of yellow and red dots and no orange dots. Okay, so what I was saying before is you would just delete some of these layers that you don't use. And the rose, magenta, mint, cyan, green, and lime. So really I've got it already down to just yellow, orange, and red. And then as I was saying, see, there's not really a smooth gradient of the color. It's really the hues that would be under that stuff to work with the black, okay, and the gray dots, merging that all together. We could have the highlight white, the underbase, let's put it over a shirt color. And then with the original underneath, let me go ahead and just do that perfect proof again. So get the merged composites. And so, you know, we can see that basically, and there's kind of some cool ways I might look at this. Let me close this duplicated document, close the original, or really, yeah, I'll close this. I want to have this be a duplicate document. And I'm going to look at just the original over that background. And I'm going to say window arrange to up horizontal. And we will maybe go like this and do a view, actually window arrange match all. And then on this one, I may, oops, let's do it again. Window arrange match, it's like matching the zoom, the location, etc. Match all. And then use the hand tool. So if I move this, we've got a link, scroll all windows. So have that checked, window arrange, match all. And what I want to do is just actually, I want to just move one. So uncheck scroll windows together. And I'm going to put this essentially to where they line up. And maybe like, give me something to look at here. Maybe like with that right there. I'll move this one down. So it's kind of like right about there. This is covering up part of it. But basically now I can go to scroll all windows, and you can see this just helps me in showing in this video what's happening with the conversion to halftones with an image like this where it's not custom color. So I'll zoom in a little bit more, and let me undo scroll all windows. We'll zoom in again, and we'll just say match window arrange, match all. Move that down. Right to about there, I guess. That looks about right. Okay, scroll all windows. So you can see what happens with this color right here. It's been converted into bits of gray and white over the orange. Okay, down here with the tire, you can see what I was talking about with the hubcap. Okay, we're keeping some gray and black dots mixing together. This light gray is made out of white and gray dots mixing together. And this area down here has a little bit of those red dots, plus the orange, gray, and black. So what you're getting is you're trying to mix like 3 or 4 screens together to make one tone or shade of color. And so the reason to go to custom color separations sometimes is that you can produce that without using the orange and the red and the gray and black and white all together. Now it does produce an accurate blend of those colors. Okay, you can see mostly up here it's just the orange and the white, a little bit of gray because it's a mid-tone, so it's kind of mixing that together. You see there's more gray in this area and only a little bit of the red and a little bit of red, yellow, and orange mixed together in that. You can see the yellow and orange making the signal light. And you can see all the gray dots, gray and black making that dark gray. Okay, so I think I've shown what you get from the traditional methods of what you might call a simulated process type of separation, where you're splitting the image into preset hue divisions and black and gray and white. And what about when you want to do custom color, where you want this to just be made out of like this type of brown color, maybe even one type of, this sort of tan khaki color, and just black dots mixing over it and a little bit of white dots, or maybe the two-toned version. So a darker shade and a lighter one. So this is where I still will use some of these actions or some of the stuff in the panel, but I would do it a little bit differently. I would trick the document first. So let me just close that. I'm not going to use it. And let's go ahead and open up the original again. I kind of should have saved it because I cropped it in just a bit. And there are some adjustments you might make to an image before you even go into the separation process, the artwork itself. Okay, if I go ahead and look at some of these areas, they're not pure solid black. They're kind of different saturated hues of black. And so I might select some of those with a selection, the magic wand tool, or really I would just go into image adjustments levels and just darken those up a bit. Okay, so now those are pretty much pure black in those areas. All right, just having that, I might go ahead and just save it. We will have this, we'll just say prepared to size and fixed dark gray black issue. Okay, I'm going to put a background in first, and I may make this certain color like magenta that I'm not going to use, and merge those together. So in the previous video where I was showing some stuff about using the custom color range, you really would have to go down a whole long path of extracting specific gradients, trying to get them to match each other, trying to see if they blend correctly. All of that stuff is not really the way I approach the color separation for screen printing process. It's something that kind of takes a while to do that way, and whether or not it comes out better or worse is kind of subjective to certain aspects of how, like I was explaining, the halftones are really important. How the halftones blend is just as important as how the gradients blend together in channels or layers, etc. Basically, you saw how it would be red and yellow dots, or orange and red, orange, gray, and white and black. We want this to necessarily be two custom colors, let's say a lighter khaki color and a little bit darker brown color, and then have the black and gray and white and maybe a little bit of yellow for the lights, or a little bit of gold, yellow, orange for the lights, let's say. So one of the tricks I've shown before in some videos was that you can use the index mode to automatically produce certain types of blends. This has already custom blends in there. I don't want to use this technique to do that. I would want to start with, let's say, just perceptual, and I'll just say 3 colors, no transparency, have the matte to none, dither to diffusion, amount 100%. So if we do preview, it tries to automatically with just 3 colors, the magenta, and then it's going to look at it and think that it should be this light brown, that dark brown. So you don't really want to let it automatically do that. I'm just going to perceptual so I can start with 3 and then force all of the colors to be custom. But I'm going to not have I'm going to have the preview be something that I check on and check off based on the colors I'm selecting and looking at it. You know, I do have those other actions which will take this image and automatically split it into tints and tones and shades, but I'm going to save that for another video because you're really getting into, you still have to go down and merge based on those divisions certain aspects of the masks, and it doesn't necessarily go directly to the halftones. You'd still have to figure out how you're going to convert to the halftone stage. This is my little trick that I like to use on lots of images, and it works sometimes, it doesn't always work. The index mode itself does have certain issues in that it doesn't always see colors as the right type of blend. But essentially with this trick, I'll go into custom, and I do want the magenta to be one of these colors. And then I'm going to take this lighter color and perhaps just select this area of it right there. And this darker color. And the thing is, the two might not blend together based on other stuff I have, so I may have to set a third color, but I can have it blend later based on the way I'm going to convert the colors back around. Okay, so let's say I'm going to pick this color right here. So those two, and then we still want the black. Okay, we still want a pure white, and we want to have a gray, but I may use like a gray that is the lighter gray. You know, I won't necessarily use a perfect medium gray with this. There's not a lot of stuff that is falling into the medium gray. I'm really looking at what is the stuff that has the most area in the image, and a lot of it is this darker gray. Okay, and maybe the lighter gray. I'll just pick the lighter gray here from the rims, like so. So that 30% gray, 31. And we also want to pick something for these. Now one is more orange than the other, and that's really okay. So we'll have this, it's like a gold yellow, and this one, it's like the brighter yellow. Okay, and then there's this color, which is just, you know, because of the interior of the car being a little slightly different, lighter shade of cream, I guess. It's not the same as the body. I may go ahead and set a color there as well. You know, I could pick that color for the seats to keep those. That color is a little different. We'll just go ahead and look at it. Some stuff we're not going to change. We're going to let it just be recreated. And let's just have that. So we'll hit OK, and then I'll do preview, and we'll go in and look at it, and we'll try to see, you know, is this made from mostly this color and the other color? You see how it's starting to throw some of those gold and yellow dots into there? So we got to be careful. It's throwing some of the dark gray in. And so that's what I was saying before, is you may want to set a middle tone just to be sure this is going to be a blend of those colors. So I'll go ahead and pick a middle tone as well. Now you can see that's mostly made out of the lighter tone, the middle tone, the middle one and the darker one, the black down there. And we can just let some of those come through, that's okay. But you see this, just made out of those two colors, right? Okay. You see the dark gray, the black, and the tires. It's kind of putting the cream color in to some of that stuff. I might not want that, even though it's the seats. You know, we could determine how many colors we want to get this down to later. I'm really just showing the trick that I use to get this extracted correctly. You kind of wanted to have a light gray in there. So let's say I go and pick a light gray separately, like this, or maybe right there from the tire. Now you can see that's mostly made out of that light gray and not the cream color. Okay. Now you don't do this at this resolution. I'm just going to hit OK so it saves my setting. And a lot of times people think that it doesn't look right because of this view. It's really just because you're not in RGB view. Going to RGB looks nice and smooth. But I want to run this in high resolution, so I'm going to do step backward. I'm in RGB mode original. I'm going to go to image, image size, put this up to about 1200 dpi. Zoom back out. And now I'll go and process the index again. So it runs at such a high resolution that I can recolor the artwork using this trick. And we don't really see much change. See how that lost a little bit of the redness to it? But for the most part, that's going to be okay. We'll just go with it and hit OK with those colors. And now this is the trick. I'm going to go in, now that it's in index mode, and I can easily recolor by going to image mode color table, and I can change some of these things around. So knowing what I can do with that automated halftone technique, I can change some of these to colors that will automatically become halftones in the separation process there. So let's start with the 3 tones that make up the car body. And what I'm going to do is pick tones that will be separated in either the 6 hue or 12 hue method. So I'm going to say this one is going to be cyan, 180 degrees. So it's a pure cyan, 180 degrees, 100% saturated and bright, cyan. The medium color, I'm going to make 210 degrees, azure blue. And then the darker one, I'm going to make pure blue, 240 degrees. So I'm tricking the original, and I'm going to change them later. You'll basically see when I run this. All right, and then these 2 colors, I could really change now to be the pure orange of 30 degrees and pure yellow of 60, just like that. And then the gray and the cream color, let's just fix those as well. Go to color table. So we've got the light gray, we'll keep it where it is. The dark gray as well. I could move the dark gray up and try to make it a dark gray by itself later. So this is actually another way to do the trick. So I'm going to bring this up to the 50 point. And then I'll change it to a dark gray after the separation process. And this light gray, I may just move up a little bit so it doesn't really get too much of the medium gray mixed into it. That'll become darker later. And then we're going to work with those colors in here. And because these are like a mid-tone of this, I'm going to set that to the azure blue. So this is actually going to become azure hue, and I can really just keep that where it was. I may just move it up a little bit. Not going to make it pure because then it'll be the same color as that mid-tone. I still want it to end up mixed with some gray or black and white inside there later, so just have it be like that. And then the only other one is that sort of cream gray color, which I could keep it the way it is, and some of that will be made out of the orange and yellow, but it really would not be a lot of it. And I think I'm going to keep going with the blue transitions. So I would essentially make it not like that dark of a blue, but it's almost like a tint of the blue. So if I'm in the azure blue areas, I'll just keep it like a grayish blue, like so. It'll just have a little bit of blue dots in it. It's not going to be its own custom color. It'll still be a blend. But basically I've tricked the color, mostly paying attention to how I can trick the body color and end up as custom tones later. Now, like I said, don't look at it this way. Go to image mode, RGB color, and first I guess I'll save this as the index recolored for halftone separation trick. And then we'll go to image mode RGB, but it's still in the tiny little pixels. So what we want to do is blur that a little bit, or come down in size back to 300 dpi. So 300 with bicubic smoothing the gradients. Now you can see how that's not really made out of tiny pixels anymore. It's been smoothed out by converting to 300 dpi from 1200. And I could run it like this. If I really wanted to smooth out a little bit more, I could just do filter blur by, like, 1 pixel or even just half a pixel blur. It's not necessarily going to clean it up that much. It's still going to end up converting to the halftones, which are larger than these blends anyway. But let's just take a look and see what we get in converting to the colors of the separation and then recoloring it back to what we had before. And that's how the trick works. So I'll save this as back to 300 dpi, prepared for halftone separation. Okay, so opening up the panel, and I guess I'll do the 3-color version, so I'll still use 12 hues, which is going to give me a cyan, a azure, and a royal blue. And I can recolor those after. We could do it as a 2-tone version by doing the 6 hues, but I'm going to include the gray. So +1 gray in the 12 hue layer rips, 60 LPI, and 12 hues. So this will run through that process like you saw before, but now I've tricked it, and I'm going to end up with these halftone screens of cyan, azure, and blue that I can convert back to the colors that I picked in the index mode. And so this is kind of what I do sometimes in preparing things for color separation and screen printing, where I want custom colors, and if it works with the indexing of the original image to trick it, then I can go ahead and recolor things back afterward. And then I don't have to go through extracting every custom tone by itself, or extracting and dividing into all the tints, tones, and shades of red, orange, and yellow. Trying to merge those. I will look at this same example under some of those techniques, but it's a lot more work that you go through, and the end result can really be about the same. So, this is just something that is one of the tricks that I use in all this stuff that I've created here, working within Photoshop, both, manually using the index mode to manually extract things in a certain way that I can recolor it, and then using these automated scripts and actions that I've written in this panel to convert it to halftone blends automatically. They interlock with each other a very specific way in how the halftones are generated. And then I can quickly go through, eliminate the screens that aren't necessary, and take those 3 that I've recolored and convert them into the custom colors that they were before. Okay, so you see what I was saying about this automatically now converts to a blend between the cyan, azure, and blue. Has the gray and the black there, orange and yellow for that, and a little bit of blue and azure and gray for the background, a little bit of blue and cyan and white there. And the magenta background is really the transparency. Let's just go ahead and start working with this. I'm going to delete the composite, and I'm going to go ahead and bring the canvas size in by -1.5, -1.5, that's relative, and then it'll just shrink it in. All right, and then we're going to take the magenta. What happens is that's been underbased now, but I'm just going to Control Select, and I've gotten all those halftones in the selection. I'm going to go to the underbase and make sure I have black as the background. And on this mask, I'm going to do Control Backspace. So that gets rid of that. I don't need the magenta anymore. I've rebuilt my transparency that way. I really don't need this rose. The orange I will keep. The red, really don't need that anywhere. Mint, don't need. Green, no. Lime, no. The yellow, yes, we'll keep those 2. And actually, I may even change this to another color, the other darker version of that part of the body color. You can see with the gray, okay, I can go ahead now and change this color of the gray to be that darker gray that we had in the original, like that 30% gray, right? Hit OK. So now I've reproduced the darkness of the gray, but I've got more of an ink working there. It's not just a mix of black dots and medium gray. It's more of the dark gray by itself, creating that tone and shade. And we still have that gray mixing with the white to create the lighter tones, right? Okay, the next is, well, some of this violet, we really don't need that. We will delete that as well. So just looking at the cyan, the azure, and the blue, we're going to go now and change these to those custom tones. So let me go ahead and close this document. It's a duplicate. I don't need this one. I'm going to go to the one that we had here. I want to have the index recolored. No, the one that I prepared, an index recolored. Actually, I wanted to have the prepared and then run to the index again. So I know exactly those tones that I had, right? What colors I had used. And we're going to move this over. So looking at those colors, I'll be able to sample them. So I'm going to go to the blue, and it's actually going to be that darker color here, right? The one that's down there. So I'm going to double click the color overlay of the blue and just change it to that color. Then I'm going to go to the azure blue, and I'll zoom in and out on this document. Double click the color overlay, change this to the middle color, and the lighter one is the cyan. Double click that, change it like so. Let's close this. Okay, so like I was saying, and then, if I want to, these colors are similar, the middle one or the darker one. What if I just want to get rid of the orange? There's really not much going on in the image. That's just those little tail lights, or the turn signal lights on the front. I'll double click that and maybe see what it looks like if I make it that color. I wouldn't really want to do the darker one, right? It's a little too dark. So we can make it the middle color, but I don't have to do that. I'll just control select the dots, go over to the azure, okay, and in that I'll hit X so I get my background to be white, and then control backspace, and then get rid of the orange. And so I've just kind of blended those together. And remember, the yellow is going to be a little bit of this, like 45 degrees or 50. Let's just say 50. And if we think that this is kind of not got enough in there, I can still just direct select in here, maybe with contiguous, and sample all layers. And I could just convert that over to the yellow. If I think that that's really just going to be too dark, I could go on here and control backspace that and go to the azure, make sure the background is black, control backspace that. So I really got both of those lights being the same color. But looking at this, we really got the blend now between the black making the darker shades, the darker brown custom color, the middle brown, the lighter one. You can see there's still a little bit of dark gray being put in there. It really depends on how good you make your original custom color extraction to not have some noise in there. But again, that's just sort of making it to be like a little bit of the, that it's kind of a tone of the color. I could go in and select that stuff and just make it the other one if I want to. It's a little bit easier when I look at these things to just go in and make selections based on that. Let's say I just look at the dark gray and I want to fix that real quick. So I'm going to only look at the dark gray, and I can quickly see what stuff is in the body color, right? And I could select around certain things. Like so. And just grab certain things. Because I'm looking at just the dots, it's like I don't really have to be as precise with the selection. So I can see where that cuts off. So I just quickly go through. And that would be stuff that I wouldn't select. Let's say I'd go and duplicate these. Okay, on this one, I would have the black as the background, control backspace. So I could go through and just get rid of the stuff that I don't want to include. And it's going to be like all of this. Let's stop there. Okay, and it's really just a little bit more, so I would just kind of select around that, you know. Just kind of make this selection. And that's something where I could go back and maybe do the index mode a little better, pick colors that match and don't allow some of that gray to come through. Okay. But I'm kind of showing you how when I just work with the halftones directly, sometimes I get through things pretty quickly, even if I have to make some selections. I really don't have to, you know, it's really like you don't have to have too much perfection in these things to still get a good screen print. So let's just select up on that stuff. Control backspace, so got rid of that. I don't need this. I really just want the stuff that's in the body area, right? And not that pinstripe. We'll keep that in the dark gray. Okay, let's just get rid of this. But I do want the dark gray to make some of these lines. So I'll keep those things in there. And again, there could be even quicker ways to go through and make these selections. But for all intents and purposes on this, as an example, I think I'll just show what I would do that I've already gotten to this point. Just keep going with what I've got. Actually, we're going to keep some of that in there. And that's the stuff I'm going to cut out. But I want to keep these little parts of the body. Okay, let's just go up here and try to finish this part of the selection. Cutting out all that stuff from the windshield, really. All right, control backspace, yep. Okay. And we will cut out this. Really all of that stuff in the window, actually, yep. Select this. And I think I will keep that in the dark gray. Okay, and then that little line. All right, so what I would do is having this selection as the gray that I want to push over to the other colors, I'm going to control select, that gets all those dots. I'm going to go back to really the dark gray, and I'm going to have the black as the background, control backspace. So that has removed all those dots from the dark gray. We'll call that dark gray. Okay, and then these are now going to be pushed into, if I look at the blue is really the dark brown or just brown. The azure is now the middle brown. And this is the light brown or khaki color, whatever you really want to call that. I could just call it khaki. And so you see where the dark gray is over that. I really would want it to probably be put into the light gray color. Let's just take a look at that. Hit X for white, turn that layer off, and we'll see how that blends together. And that's pretty much fine the way it is. You know, I could undo that and see what it's like putting it into the other one. So Control Select, go to the middle brown, have it on white background, Control Backspace. Maybe that's a little smoother. Yeah. Okay, so now I don't need that. It was really just cleaning up how that happened from the index mode. Okay. And looking at the background, let's go back to some sort of blue color. We've still got an underbase white, and depending on what colors you've picked, if you want to underbase that brown or not, really depends on the shirt color. Okay, but we've got the underbase, we've got the black, we have the dark gray now, and you really have control over making that a little lighter if we want. Depends on the printing order. A lot of other stuff does depend on how you end up printing these dots onto films and putting them on screens. But then we've got the darker brown custom color, the middle brown, the khaki color, and we have that yellow just making up the signal. And we've got a highlight white, which you can see now that highlight white is not in all of the other areas. Same thing, the gray, the black, they're not mixed into all that stuff like in the previous example with the orange making up all those tones. So, and that's really something you do in screen printing, to have control over printing a larger area of color and keeping it consistently from print to print being that color. But you still have gradients that blend between them, right? So it's custom colors. You can see some of them are now in that area with the gray to make the interior, right? So just little bits of it there. And there we go. So, you know, it's technically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screens. If I had to do this on something without the ability to do 8 screens, and let me go ahead and do the perfect proof. That merges to a new layer. Sometimes I'll even take that and just blur it a little bit to see what you'd get with some of the dots mixing together a little. You know, 2 or 3 pixel blur. And you can see how it reproduces that original very accurately with those custom tones. Now, I could have gone through and done it with the 6-hue method and gotten this to just be a blend between the two colors. It would have been cyan to blue, not cyan, azure, and blue. And then sometimes you don't really print a highlight white screen, you just do the underbase. Having the gray in there, you know, depends. Like I said, if it was going on a dark gray shirt color that was the same gray, you could essentially eliminate that screen. There's other ways to merge it down and make it work even for 6 colors. But I'm going to finish the video here. Just wanted to show that trick that I do to convert an image first into custom colors. Use the image mode color table in index to recolor those into tones that might automatically process through something like the 6 hues or 12 hues layer rip that automatically halftone tessellates the entire image into these layers. And then I can recolor them. I can do some editing directly to the halftones, but really just kind of a different way in which I approach color separation for screen printing and working with custom colors. And again, you can get that Max Chroma Color Blender and Halftone Tessellator completely free, and you can download that directly off the payhip.com website. I'll put the web link in the description of this video. And the other stuff I used was the index mode. You know, it comes down to each example. I'm going to be going through and showing lots of different examples of what I would do, both with recoloring art, getting access to the images, tints and tones and shades. I will take this same example and run it through the Max Chroma Master Colorist Action Pack and find out some other ways in which I might merge the colors down and then convert to halftones. But really the halftone interlocking process is where I think a lot of stuff really matters, and how you end up printing it and how the blends come out together to create the right colors from the original image. And you know, that's one of my tricks and techniques, and some of the ways I use the Max Chroma Color Blender panel for Photoshop. And I'm going to conclude this video and we'll get into some other examples. So thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.